Alright, so this is The Gulf War, and it's the first Mabel episode of the season, and also the first appearance of the season of Pacifica Northwest. Or, I'm sorry, the first appearance of the season of Pacifica. Yeah, sorry, I just really like the way Mabel says that. She doesn't actually do that in this episode, I don't think. But yeah, it's actually kind of interesting. This is the first episode really to entirely focus on Pacifica and Mabel's rivalry, because in season one we had Double Dipper, where she's introduced, where it's just sort of a subplot. And then in The Time Traveller's Pig and Irrational Treasure, it's kind of more, she's just a sort of plot device, really, to just sort of push the plot in a certain direction or get certain things to happen. But this is really the first episode sort of properly, entirely focusing on the rivalry that has formed between the two of them, for no more reason really than just she's not very nice, really, and Mabel doesn't like her. And the direction they take it in here, actually, where they sort of try and sort of resolve the rivalry, and Mabel tries to sort of befriend her at the end. Actually, I didn't expect that. I thought Mabel was just simply going to win the competition at the end, and Pacifica would be put in her place or get some kind of comeuppance or everything. So that's kind of a nicer kind of direction that they've taken things in there, and I did kind of like that at the end. It doesn't really develop Pacifica's character in any kind of interesting kind of way, but I think there's potential maybe for a couple of new directions they could take this kind of thing in, maybe where perhaps Mabel is able to find a better side to Pacifica, maybe, or something. That could be kind of interesting. I thought the comedy actually was a little lacking in this episode. I mean, there's a big potential, I think, for a lot of comedy with the situation you have here of all the different themes you have on the holes and everything with the creatures inside. You know, you've got like pirates, and you've got knights and miners and everything. There's a lot of potential for different kinds of jokes you have there. The miner joke with the guy going through when it was filled with gas, that was pretty good. But other than that, I can't remember too many interesting kind of jokes there. Really, where they were parodiising, the cliches of those kinds of themes or anything. But it's kind of an interesting kind of idea. I did like the little creatures. I don't remember if they had names or anything like that, but the way they just sort of misunderstood the situations, and the way they were making a big deal out of something that really wasn't that big a deal. Like the sticker Mabel was wearing and everything. There's a bit of a tone of Gulliver's Travels to it, actually. Where the little people in that were making a big fuss about what end they broke their eggs at. So there's definitely a kind of interesting kind of Gulliver's Travels theme here to the way that they're making a big deal out of something that really isn't all that important. And perhaps that's kind of the lesson Mabel learns, I suppose, in this episode, really. This rivalry she has with Pacifica is, kind of silly, really. They're making a big fuss about sort of nothing. And also, Pacifica being tied to that little conveyor belt thing, that's obviously very reminiscent of the iconic scene in Gulliver's Travels where he's being tied down with the small strings and everything. So, there's an obvious kind of inspiration that's been taken from that. Interestingly, Stan and Zeus aren't in the episode very much, but they still have their little sort of little lines there. Zeus, obviously, with his W neck, really, and the thing I was thinking immediately when he said that is, wouldn't that middle part just sort of flop down, and it would just look kind of strange and everything? And that's exactly what happens. I've been watching the show too much. Obviously, I can predict exactly what's going to happen. And that guy on the back of the car at the end of the episode, I was thinking exactly, oh, they're going to fake us out here. We're going to think he's got some big scheme plan to sort of rebel against everything that they've done, and then it's all going to, go kaput in like 2 seconds or something. And he does. He just falls off the back of the truck, and that's the end of it. Trying to think. I was a little bit sort of. I don't like where this is going. When Dipper suggested that they cheat, basically, but Mabel does sort of make us aware of the fact that they're going to cheat, really. But Dipper kind of makes a kind of lame excuse that Pacifica's just as bad, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, sort of thing. And I suppose Mabel does sort of figure out that it wasn't right to cheat and everything. She basically says to Pacifica at the end, doesn't she, that had we played fairly, you would have won easily. But I suppose that wasn't really the lesson of the episode, but perhaps it could have been done a little bit better, a little sort of more clear that, it wasn't really right for them to cheat there or anything. The other thing I found kind of interesting actually about the designs of Mabel and Pacifica is so the thing I really liked about Mabel's design from the first time I started watching the show is she's been made to look sort of innocent rather than, you know, attractive or glamorous or anything, you know, with her having braces and brown hair and rather unflattering sweaters. Whereas Pacifica is made to sort of look kind of sort of glamorous and everything, and, you know, blonde hair obviously being the sort of very sort of prominent kind of feature. You know, she is the kind of person at school that, you know, you would be very kind of envious of simply because she's attractive. I think maybe it's kind of a cliche. In fact, I think Mabel says at one point she's kind of a cliched, whatever, sort of pop-tart kind of girl and everything. Although she doesn't dress in pink like those types of girls normally do in these kinds of shows. But I kind of wonder what attractive girls actually think of these kind of cliches, that they're being portrayed in this kind of way of being the villains, you know, because they're good looking. Really, and then obviously it's kind of weird once you get to adulthood. You know, the attractive women are now, well, they're not so much the good people in these stories, but they are most definitely the characters we are supposed to be enjoying or be interested in for very different kind of reasons. Obviously, you know, as a child, if you're attractive, you're the villain. But as an adult, if you're attractive, you know, you're in there for very different kind of reasons. At least if you're female. So it's kind of weird the way things kind of switch up as you get older. What else? A couple of interesting kind of setups again. That is a thing I think this show does really well with the setups that they have. They have like Zeus mentioning that, you know, miniature golf doesn't really make much sense at the beginning of the episode, and of course they revealed that there's actually a reason for that. Although it's kind of weird though that they were saying the 18th hole was the only one that was behaving kind of weird, and yet there were those creatures in every single one of those holes. So why weren't all the holes behaving kind of weird? I don't know. And also the bonus hole that enables them to make their escape at the end, that was set up in the early part of the episode, so that was pretty awesome as well. Trying to think if there are any other jokes really that really made me laugh. Oh, Stan is basically saying, is it right to break into the miniature golf course at the middle of the night? Just kidding, let's break in. That made me laugh. That was pretty cool. I don't really understand why they had to break in the middle of the night and, you know, have this competition in the middle of the night and everything. You know, why couldn't they have just done it during the day when it was open? You know, what was stopping them? I guess maybe they felt it was going to be too crowded or something. Or obviously it was more logical that the creatures would come out and start intervening with what was going on if, you know, there was only those. It was only Mabel and Pacifica at the golf course at the time or something. I don't know. You know, it may. I guess the writers felt it sort of made a little bit more sense that they come out in the middle of the night. Maybe just figured there'd be nobody around, or nobody that would see them, or nobody that would say anything about. But there are people around, so why would they come out? I guess it's not supposed to make sense. It's just supposed to sort of be enjoyable and everything. The main thing I sort of took from this, though, on a negative side, was I probably wasn't laughing as much as I normally am when I'm watching the show. You know, there weren't sort of that many kind of big jokes or anything. I'm sort of trying to think off the top of my head of any like really memorable, funny moments. And, you know, again, there's a couple that I've already mentioned. There's Mabel opening her mouth and Dipper feeding him the tortilla chips. That was kind of funny. But no, other than that, there's not too many like really funny moments. So this wasn't a particularly strong episode, I would say, in terms of comedy, but it's some really kind of interesting kind of development of Pacifica and Mabel, which I wasn't really expecting, really. I thought that was just going to be a standard kind of rivalry that would just come back a few times during the series, and that would be it, really. So, yeah, I'll be interested to see where they go with this. And no development with that laptop that we saw at the end of the last episode, so that's still hanging over. This is obviously very much a filler episode here. I thought they could have developed Pacifica's character a little bit more. The only thing they really develop about her is her relationship with Mabel. We don't really sort of find out anything more about her. Maybe she's pressured by her rich family, just because she's rich, perhaps. Who knows? But yeah, it's a decent episode. Probably won't be up there as one of my personal favourites, but yeah, it was enjoyable enough, and I always like Pacifica Northwest. That is a character that I enjoy greatly. So yeah, that's the Gulf War for you guys. So I'll see you soon for another episode.